true. I mean, I do remember the time where we were so excited for Bat Rider with the Fey Grenade when it still had your attack. That was fun. Imagine if it still did that, and with the new mechanic on the shard, you just have that, additional source of of sticky napalm. So would have been fun to see that. Unfortunately,
I
not
wish it
more,
did.
but I wish it did as well, Mike. Still,
Oh,
the
there
picks
he
come out.
is.
What else? We just talked about this here. It was already popular in the last patch. Comes true again. You have a great save now for some of the Kunkka shenanigans. You've got a good way of holding down at least one target with your Fiend's Grip. And Feeble is going to hurt a Kunkka a lot and a Shadow Demon as well. So a lot of utility coming up from Orca. I have no clue why this hero needed even more utility, but there you go, Mike.
It did need it, John. It's not enough that
Are
you
you
can
sure?
Nightmare dodge any spell and have a Fiend's Grip that goes through BKB. Enfeeble wasn't good, John. It wasn't good enough. It's been buffed now, and I think it's in a nice spot. Still, we do see T1 go back for that Mirana we talked about earlier. Pretty standard. It's just fair enough. You got the easiest setup in the game with Disruption into the arrow. Very easy stuff here for T1. Obviously works very well with the Kunkka as well, right? You Disruption into Torrent, into arrow, whatever you want, even the boat. Why the hell not? What do you go for this fourth pick, though? I mean, 2 more cores left, an off lane, and arguably a safe lane or a mid, depending on where you want to throw this Kunkka. Is there any heroes in particular that you think you'd love to see in this new patch, John?
Yeah, just bring out the Tiny. Just give us the 15-minute shard. Show us why it's good. Or the spicier option there, Mike, would be pause 1 and dying, as we saw Tino do before. 15-minute shard is also pretty good for him. That's one way to start farming early, start running around with your Flesh Golem a lot faster, get the zombies spawned up. You kind of have the same build-up as Core Tiny. Echo Saber is what you'd want. Of course, the Tiny scales better into late game, but Undying would be spicy. I don't think we're going to see anyone try it. It was, again, only really Tino that did that on Execration when he was on it, so probably not. I think a Tiny is still a very safe bet. T1, though, go with a Beastmaster. And that does give them really strong lane control. We've seen Cuckoo play this a ton. Gives you great vision to play with. Really strong single target control. On T1, they've got a lot of ways of breaking off the grip. With Aurora, they have a good way of keeping down the Ember Spirit pick that Orca does take here as well. So I think T1 set themselves up nicely. For Orca, Ember Spirit up against Kunkka matchup isn't the worst. And Ember Spirit got buffed in a weird way. Sleight of Fist not getting creep reduction more means that there is an argument for the old Battle Fury Ember. I don't think we've seen it come out from any player yet. It's a bit too slow from the mid. But you do have that going for you. It's a lot easier for Ember to farm. Stacks are going to be easier for him to clear out as well. So I think there is some potential for Ember to actually flash farm a little bit faster or catch up if he does have a slow lane playing in the jungle now.
We might be going back to the old school right-click Ember build as well, right? Like, it does seem like with the changes, you can utilize the right-click style. I don't know if you'd go as far as, say, getting a Battle Fury, but you might look back at those data lists now, or even the Bloodthorn build-up on Ember could be very nice, considering the changes to the Orca that have recently made. And that's a change I didn't personally understand, John. I don't understand why Orca needed to be changed, but long behold, it has been, and now every position 1 I see is picking it up, which is, very annoying. Team
It's
Orca?
everywhere.
Yeah.
And even the build-up for Bloodthorn is really interesting, giving Mage Slayer an upgrade path. So tempo, pause once that used to build it. I think PA comes into mind. Feels like you could definitely go for it. As you said, Ember would be pretty nice with it. But the effect of the Mage Slayer as well can cause big issues for your backline supports. And there's that Tiny ban. So we won't see Tiny, unfortunately, Mike. The busted heroes are gone. So there you go.
Unfortunate. Well, who's to say we've even seen all the busted heroes yet, John? It's very hard to go through all the heroes and think of all the shards and think of all the broken mechanics that could possibly be in Dota right now. And there's your Wraith King coming out. I mean, it's pretty standard draft here from T1, and it looks like it's probably going to be a very standard draft here from Team Orca. Nothing too shocking going on yet. And they bring out the Medusa, so nothing's changed. We do have the what looks to be the old meta coming into this game, number 1. I suppose at least there was some bounty rune changes, John. I guess, now the bounty runes are the other way around, Not that it changes anything, but maybe it does. Who the hell knows?
Yeah, I think the one change for that bounty rune is you are likely to fight around those jungle side runes a lot more often rather than riverside. and it makes it a bit harder for mid, which is really what we want, because you and I, we were complaining about, not just us, a lot of players have been talking about the impact of water runes as well in the 2 and 4 minute mark. At the least, your bounty rune refill for mid's a lot more punishing. You're going to miss out on a lot more of the wave, especially if you have a hero with no mobility. As you mentioned, Mike, draft is pretty standard for both sides. I would lean towards E1 just a bit more. I think their aggression is a lot higher. They've got really good push coming out with a Beastmaster. You don't have any natural way of making that lane easier for VT Faded, although as a Dusa, you can stand back and just play with Mystic Snake. It's not the worst lane for a Dusa, but I think when it just comes down to playing a very fast pace, T1 does have a lineup to enable that maybe a bit quicker here.
Yeah, fair enough. I kind of agree with you on that. It is one of those things, though, against Medusa, you get to a stage where you just can't really contest this hero anymore, and I don't think much has changed in this new patch for Medusa either, so chances are, if Team Orca are able to buy enough time, they may just be able to take over the game, but we'll see very soon, as we are going to get into Game 1 in any moment. See which team can pull off the Game 1 victory. Haven't looked at any betting odds, but I imagine T1 are the favourites going into this, and they have been looking splendid in these recent series we have been watching. Team Orca, though, obviously looking like quite a strong up-and-coming team themselves, so can't underestimate these guys either going into this Game 1. But they do have a tendency of struggling with Game 1 throughout the previous series we have watched, so you never know. Maybe they needed a bit of a warm-up in this best of 2 series. We'll see as we do officially get into it. Game number 1.
Should be fairly interesting. Orca were one of the favorites in DPC Tour 1 to kind of make it up to Div 1. They didn't manage to make it through, but this is a pretty good testing ground for them to see how well they'd hold up against a Div 1 team, and T1 of course did great recently in the regional finals. So I'm keen to see how much Orca can pressure T1, how much they can break that tempo that T1 love to set. Already have early smokes out, and we'll see. Lines are drawn towards that bounty rune area, although Carl does break his smoke, and his ward should be taken out soon, as Minyu Ping does have the sentries ready. We'll see if he does manage to read that.
He's thinking about it. Not 100% sure if one was placed, and he has to be careful because there is a big smoke coming in. T1 almost hoping he went for that D ward, and they'll be very patient about this. So using the ward as bait almost, as Minyu Ping seems to know that they may be doing this, and is sitting back and just waiting patiently, as they do bring more numbers now, Orca. It does seem like they're going to head up top instead to the other bounty rune spot. So just going to completely avoid the side of T1 here. And to be fair, anytime you're going against SD Mirana, you'd rather not go for the level 1 team fight. It's almost guaranteed you're going to be able to land that big stun out at level 1, and you'd rather not cop it if you are the team of Orca. It should be a 2 for 2. I mean, Whitemon is posturing to try and steal, but see, as a Shadow Demon, he's not going to try. Just leave it be. And they may run into Yif. They will. But he'll go for the Sakuchi, and he'll be right out of there. So Whitemon, he's going to try and just punish him a little bit here with this disruption. I suppose he can get a fair bit of damage before that Sakuchi's back off cooldown. It is quite nice amounts of damage here onto Yif. Anyway though, John, talking about top lane, you've got Whitemon there against Yif, and of course Gabby on the Wraith King going to be against GY. Tell me, who's favored in this top lane?
There's some aggression you can get out here for Orca, especially once you've got maybe a value point with the Swarm. That should amp up the damage coming through from your God's Rebuke. It's still a Wraith King, and he's still pretty beefy. He's got the save from his Shadow Demon, so any aggressive moves can be counteracted by Whitemon. I think overall you're looking at a fairly even farming lane. You might just want to focus on support harassment, as Yif and Whitemon are doing, and that's not something Gabby minds too much. Just build up your farm, you get your skeletons going. You have an easier time getting those skeletons up when you do summon skeletons as well because of the patch, so should be smooth going for Gabby. I don't see too much contention out, but at the same time, GY shouldn't be held back from his build-up as well. So very even.
Certainly not. Of course, over in the mid lane, Citrus and Carl going to be against each other. But now Citrus having a pretty darn good time on the Ember, 7-0. As time goes on, Carl should eventually be able to overtake this lane, but I mean, there were those recent changes to the Ember, so you never know how this one pans out. Overall, if I was to take a guess, John, I'd strongly guess that Carl should have the advantage here in this Conquer.
Still have a great time clearing out with the Tidebringer. Your X level 1, again, has a little bit more range, so the threat at level 6 is a lot stronger from Carl. And there's also that slight change to Flame Guard. It only absorbs 70% of the damage now, so it lasts a little bit longer at the cost of your own HP. Not that it's a massive concern for Citrus, as long as he dodges out the Torrent, which is a tall order from Carl to land on something like the Ember anyway, with a Slight. And you should just see stable farm here as well. Maybe some support rotations from T1 as they do have a Mirana, but the lanes are pretty tied up right now.
Yeah. And the last lane, of course, Zephyr going to be there with Cuckoo against Menu Ping and VT Faded. And VT obviously having a very free time thus far, as Cuckoo's going to try his best to deny as many creeps as possible, but it is very hard against the Bane Medusa. There's plenty of harass to fly out. Yeah, you can get lucky if an arrow does connect. Maybe you could kill off Menu Ping or the Medusa, but chances are during this lane that I think Orca are going to have just a fine time. I don't think the Beastmaster is going to have that much of a presence up until you get that maybe level 5, level 6 mark.
Yeah, you're just kind of sticking for the farm. You're going to have a really good time on VT Faded. Minyo Ping's just trading hits. The big thing here for Orca is that they're pinning down Zephyr in this lane. He's not able to rotate out just yet. He might make a move by the 4-minute mark. You will want to kind of play while you're strong. You know, once you've got that value point on X for Carl, that's when you should go. And Citrus has been pressuring Carl pretty well. Already low in HP. He will have his bottle coming through, or no, just additional regen and tangos. He's not going to be held back too far, but you will want to alleviate some of that pressure down the line here.
Oh, certainly so. One thing we didn't really talk about during the draft phase, John, as well, is the last games we've been seeing T1 really, in fact, hold that thought, because Carl's in trouble now. Citrus trying to get a little bit active, but unable to secure the kill thus far. One thing we hadn't really mentioned is the previous series we have watched T1 win quite dominantly has been Gabby playing heroes like Razor in that POS 1 role. So I'm curious to see what happens when he goes to a bit of a greedier POS 1 like the Wraith King and gives Carl a bit more of a tempo setting core in the mid lane. Because again, it does feel like Carl has been playing a bit more greedy in the mid lane per se, and well, with this kind of draft, I don't think T1 can afford to do that this time. As Whitemon top lane, that's a beautiful spear out from GY, and Yif is going to find the first blood. GY just reading that angle very nicely, and well, I didn't think he'd land the stun there, but just very nice once again.
It's GY Morris. He knows how to play this hero on edge. He can read your movements really well. And he's doing great up top, 26-4 in comparison to Gabby's slower start of 19-3. Without the Bane cutting off, or without the Shadow Demon cutting off that Mars, he can just play with a God's Rebuke, spear you back, and even if it's not a kill, it keeps you away from the creep wave. So you are getting some good impact against the farm of T1 initially, and all the lanes for T1 have been slower in terms of that CS. I mean, we haven't seen the early rotations out from Zephyr. It's past the 4-minute mark now. No movement down mid, no plays with the X Arrow, no plays with Shadow Demon Mirana as well with Disruption Arrow. So I think that early bite T1 has with their support combination and their setups is not showing through, and that's the big benefit for Orca to find this farm.
Top lane, Spear is going to be out on Gabby, and it does seem like they want to really try and harass him out, as they are going to force the TP away. Gabby, quick thinking, or rather thinking, to get out of there. So Whitemon, he does have a salve available right now for the Wraith King, whenever is necessary, and we'll hand it over. So GY's having a really good time, John. 41-4. Gabby is almost half the CS of this Mars. I mean, this is just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's just down to being left alone. It's mainly because Yif keeps chasing down Whitemon. So your Shadow Demon can't stick around. He can't stick next to Gabby. He can't apply Shadow Poison stacks onto the Mars to get some harassment off. They will move Whitemon in for that 6-minute rune, and they also have Zephyr around, so they could look for a nice kill opportunity here.
X is there on Citrus. Current will connect, but they seem to just want the power rune. Still, regen is going to be bought, but no, never mind. They're going right in. Arrow does land with the boat to follow up, but a nice Nightmare. It won't be enough, though. Menu Ping trying to save the day. Isn't even going to be able to snipe the regen rune from them. And eventually, Menu Ping should die. But he will buy out a bit of time, but eventually his time will come. And Carl will finish him with the Tidebringer hit. Nice rotation from Menu Ping to try and save, but ultimately T1 was just way too far ahead.
Yeah, and that's the movement we were looking for from T1. Get your supports in, you've got the arrow setup, you've got really good single target control. And they managed to regain, you know, a bit of a lead here for Carl. He's feeling good now on the Kunkka, finding that great first boat use. The side lanes are still kind of hurting. Gabby's farm is still being held back. But you are building up on that momentum that you mentioned that Carl is playing. The Kunkka does come in line faster. It's not as greedy as some of his mid-heroes. And this should mean that he's going to be able to show up to some side fights, get some work done for T1. They've already got level 6 on Cuckoo down bot as well. You mentioned this, Mike, but there is a roar opportunity down the line if you do find a space to do so.
Absolutely.
Radiant's middle tower is under attack.
Things still going very, very well for T1, though. I say that, Team Orca, they've just got a free farm VT faded right now on this Medusa. Again, the pressure has not really been applied down to this bot lane. Cuckoo has been trying, but it is a rather challenging lane for the Beastmaster. Very intrigued to see how this Helm of the Dominator goes and what kind of creep he does decide to take over with that Dominator. Though speaking of, Raw is going to be there into the arrow, but a nice Nightmare. It's not going to dodge the arrow though. VT faded, eventually to drop. As T1 do rotate both supports down, back in onto menu ping. They should find another. I thought maybe that Nightmare timing was nice, John, but it was a bit off the mark.
Yeah, it's a bit tricky to find that opening when there's a lot of stack stuns coming in from T1. There's a lot of things to have to dodge out. And I like seeing this commitment now from T1. They know this is approaching their mid-game spike past the laning phase. They can start shoving in lanes. They can start looking for those big kills. They do still have to keep track of the stacks being built up in that jungle or the eventual stacks that might come true. VT Faded is starting his progress in that triangle camp, just getting what he can. In comparison, you are still suffering here on Gabby. You know, your Deuce is still slightly ahead. You need to get some space going here on T1 side, and it looks like that will come from the pressure down bot. Dominator already up. No real big creep coming out yet, but this should allow them to get that shove in on the objective.
Oh, menu ping in trouble down a bot lane again. He's just been completely surrounded by the balls and creeps, and eventually is going to fall. As Citrus, he tried to rotate, and he's going to try and go for a trade out as the arena has been dropped. GY and Yif show up, but the boat's going to be there. Back in onto Citrus, and they've got the Ember. It is not a good fight whatsoever for Team Orca now. They're going to try to run out of this, but it's not looking good. GY is going to be the third to fall as Yif is the only man left standing. But that bottom T1 tower is going to be free pickings now here for T1.
It's not going to take them too long. They don't have the big creep wave, but the tower's already pretty darn low. And there's just not much presence coming out from Ragdoll. It's fairly staggered movement in. Once you lose the Mars, once the arena's committed and you don't manage to find and stop, say, the Kunkka boat from coming through, the Jur ability's just a bit too high. You don't have high burst on Orca to really eat through that rum buff. So maybe a little bit more patience from Orca coming through. Their draft is still going to need a little bit more time to cook up. Citrus only has the phase boots right now, no Javelin, nor Orb of Corrosion, and looks like T1 has their eye set on that mid.
They do. Who have they got though? Carl. He's not able to get the X off on Citrus this time. Might find menu ping, but the Nightmare's going to be there. Still, Citrus getting very unlucky with the power runes, and it is going to be down bot. Be able to go ahead and just secure that illusion rune there for Carl. I suppose for Orca though, you're pretty happy as long as VT Faded's just hitting creeps right in that triangle, and that's exactly what he's doing. The VT Faded just uncontested right now, and I just wonder, John, does that worry you at all for T1?
Yeah, it is of concern. It's not a very big lead you have in VT Faded, so he needs a lot more time, and I think that's giving T1 a lot of leeway to still keep playing aggressive, because the Deuce is not farming as fast as you'd want. You're not building up as many stacks, especially since some of those creeps hit harder. Smoke up top, though.
There is GY. Being caught by the X, back into the boat from Carl, into the arrow, and there's a reason why they prioritize going for this trio of heroes. It's just so hard to try and fight into. And how even Gabby got the kill, John. The Skeletons got the job done. So T1, they couldn't have asked for a better person to pick up that kill. And they've just been so dominant. It's just so hard to fight back against the trio of SD, Mirana, and Kunkka. They go in again. Moonlight Shadow, but menu ping. He's got the Fiend's Grip with the Sentry Ward. That'll be a free kill to go the way of the Bane. Kind of unfortunate the VT Faded could not pick up that one, but what can you do? You get a bit unlucky sometimes.
Yeah, it's still a nice pickup to get. Gives a little bit more breathing room for Orca. They don't get stopped in their jungle farm from VT Faded. So your Deuce is still building up. Again, the pacing of the Deuce is not that far ahead of the Wraith King. They will spot out Cuckoo, but they don't really have follow-through. Their control's on the Bane and on the Mars, maybe a little bit on that Ember if he does get good chains off. But just threatening with Weaver is not enough to hold back Cuckoo. So he'll go back to building up as well, almost at that Overlord timing. And once that's up with some of the new neutrals, you can make a lot of work happen in Mac. Heck, pushes become a lot faster with some of those abilities as well.
Double damage rune available for Carl. You know he wants to play. They would have loved to find VT faded, but they weren't in range for the disruption at the time. Meanwhile, Orca, I mean, still just trying to chase around Cuckoo here on this Beastmaster, but he's well and truly out of there. They might be able to snipe some of the creeps, but it's like Cuckoo will just dominate one of the Radiant creeps instead. Not willing to hand over that great bonus gold over to Yif on that Weaver. GY may get caught out as well, as it seems like he has been spotted there for a moment. He's actually going to find some couriers on his way out, but won't try to go for the snipe. Still, they do ping him out. They know exactly where he's gone here. GY still going to waste quite a bit of time from T1. Can they find him? TP away and no, they cannot. GY is fine.
It's a lot of space taken out. You're not under pressure from Shadow Demon Mirana rotating, so it's a lot of breathing room from Orca, and Orca will immediately smoke with GY back. They still don't have that blink on the Mars, but if they find a good angle, they might be able to finally punish Cuckoo here.
Perhaps. Cuckoo does have friends around, but they are just in the mid-river right now. Carl, no, he's going to be targeted, but he got the boat out in time. That's going to make him a lot tankier, and quite frankly, impossible to kill him off. So Carl, he'll get Fiend's Grip up here by Menu Ping, but the disruption is there from Whitemon, and now they've got the Bane down. Carl, he'll turn right back around onto Citrus with the X out into the torrent. They've got the Ember controlled up, but can they hold him down? Not quite. Meanwhile, Cuckoo is going to walk out of there, and there he comes the turnaround into the arrow onto Yif. The Weaver is going to be able to get that time lapse off, but is still being chased down here by Gabby and should eventually drop as the torrent does land. And the best that's gone right so far for Orca is the fact that they got Whitemon. But they might find Cuckoo now as he's quite low. But can they find him at the tree line? They do. Citrus will take him down, but Gabby is cleaning up on the Wraith King. Still Citrus, he does get Zephyr on that Mirana, but it may cost his own life. And it will. Carl able to pick it up. So a 3-for-3 trade in the mid lane. It does favor the side of T1, however.
I think the benefit here for Orca is that at the least VT Faded managed to get some gold going from being around for that fight. So your Medusa is still building up. It's not increasing the net worth gap between Wraith King and Dusa, and I think that is a worry. You want to have an item advantage in this matchup. Wraith King, once the Desolator is up, is just going to rip face. He's not going to care too much about that Mana Shield. There will be enough to overwhelm. For the side of Orca, it would have been a lot simpler if they had the blink up in GY, but he was still a ways off from it. He will have his blink up now. This could be the opportunity for Orca to regroup, look for another angle, look for another hero to jump down, and just start getting those Blink Spears, Blink Arena Spears going, and maybe take out the Kunkka in time before that boat does fly through.
Well, I don't think they can, John. Carl is proving to be a little bit too tanky, as Nightmare is not going to dodge out the X-Pack either. Arrow is going to land. GY still in massive, massive trouble as Carl just wipes him out. What can you find here, Orca? They're going to try on Whitemon, but it's still not going to be a good trade. They need more than that. They will at least get the Shadow Demon. There's Menu Ping. That's a target. They've got Zephyr with the Fiend's Grip out, but here come the rotations. They've got to get this kill quick and just run the hell out of there as Gabby has joined in onto Menu Ping. They might fight a 2-for-2, and it will be. It still feels very favorable here for T1, John. They got that offlane Mars as well as the Pos 5 Bane. And they lost both their supports for that. I still feel like Orca are just unable to find the positive end of these trades.
And they find the top tier 1, so they at least open up a little bit of that forward top jungle for themselves to farm up. They don't really have the best control yet, and they don't have forward vision to really lock in a safe farming route there for VT Faded. So it's still well within T1's reach to just build up. And you've already got the gold lead swing T1's way. 7-14, 2k lead up for the Dire side. Ardusa has been overtaken by Gabby. Net worth lead of that Dusa is completely gone with Gabby showing up to these fights. And that was without the Deso. which is up and running now for Gabby. So even more output here from the Raid King Ardusa, not quite there yet. Does have the Manta coming in, so some protection is afforded here for VT Faded. He's going to need the stats of the Scotty. He's going to need maybe a Butterfly, maybe a Daedalus down line just to really dish out the hurt, as it does feel like in general, once the boat is out, Orca just doesn't have burst to deal with it. Like that ROM buff is just delaying these fights for so long that T1 can just turn around and fight.
Oh, absolutely. Very, very rough time here for Team Orca. As it looks like T1 might go for the Roshan now. I mean, Helmet the Overlord is available on Cuckoo, so we've got plenty of damage, plenty of auras to help out, but it is going to be scouted out here by the Ember. Citrus is going to get X though. The Hawk, it did spot him, and they've got the arrow. Oh no, this is not the way to start for Team Orca. They automatically lose their mid-Ember. Though he can buy back, but he has no remnants available to really just remnant back to. Arena, though, has been dropped. GY going to try and go after the back lines. As he does go after that Shadow Demon from Whitemon. He is still alive, still buying a bit more time as the arrow does land on TF. They are still just trying to deal with the Bane. They've got him down as they're onto BT Faded now. They've got the Medusa surrounded, but never mind. Here comes Citrus with a massive Slider Fist. So much damage flying out. They might even find Gabby. The first life at the very least as Carl is dropping low himself. What a buyback out from Citrus, as Gabby's the only man left standing, and he is going to drop eventually. T1, such a great start, but the buyback out from Citrus with the massive Slider Fist, it just cost them so much on the Dire.
And that was a ridiculous amount of output coming out from Citrus, and that's just what a Maelstrom is. Proccing around. Roche is low enough for them to take. You even got a lucky Invis route for BT Faded to ensure that he could clean up the kill, dodging out any small play that Gabby might have been able to do at the end. So a good turnaround from Orca, keeping themselves kind of in the game, like pulling ahead now slightly. Ardusa is now comfortably at around 1k ahead of a Raid King. Not a massive amount, but that should mean your Scotty timing is going to be quick over the next item of a Raid King. For T1, I think it boils down to maybe just having Gabby running out so far forward without the BKB up. He had no spell protection. Carl popped his BKB early, and the supports were cut off. Orca's focus is starting to work out. If you take out the Bane, if you take out the Shadow Demon and Mirana, you take out a big part of what T1 has in the middle of these fights. You take away their save potential. You take away their one real long, short cooldown stun outside of the Raid Fire Blast. And then you're just reliant on X-Torrent, which is not reliable, and Roar, which is an ult. So you manage to get the tempo your way. Orca can't really pressure too much out of this. I mean, they are taking control of the top jungle. There are obs wards here from T1.
Oh, the Hawk dive. Yeah, they got the bomb with the Beastmaster. Yif, gonna get roared up immediately. Cuckoo, not gonna have any of this shenanigans. The GY is gonna get purged here by Whitemon. Back into the X of Carl. No torrent to be thrown out. They're just kind of torturing GY here, and they'll give the kill over to Whitemon. A little bit unnecessary from T1, but why the hell not?
Yeah. You know, just saving that torrent in case maybe a flank comes in from the Ember. Maybe you see a Nightmare off onto someone setting up for a grip, so at least you've got one more stun option to stop that channel. While that breaks out, Gabby's just farming bot. He does skip the BKB. He is just going straight for a blink. I think that will rectify one issue. He was running up to the high ground in that last fight over the ramp, and that was fairly blind. So this should allow him to just instantly gap close a lot better, get the stun off on here he wants to pin down, and try to get the burst down with that Desolator up and running. So we'll see how much more aggressive Gabby will want to play. Again, Ardusa is starting to build up, Mike. 2k lead now from the 1k a while ago, or still standing at around 1k. Scotty not too far off, and that's when the Ardusa really starts to feel a lot harder to handle. The slow up against 3 melee cores is not going to feel great for T1, and if VT Faded just finds good spacing in this fight, it's going to be painful.
Well, Carl's reacting very quickly here to GY as he does get the BKB off in time to avoid the Arena Spear combo. Still the Tier 1 mid tower now under siege, but an arrow going to be dodged here by VT. They're going to commit for this. Keep in mind, you don't have Arena for this team fight, so it could be a little bit awkward. Still a lot of patience as Torrent is going to land. Whitemon going to juke out the Spears. GY going to rush in on his own, trying to get something set up for his team, but now the boat is going to fly in. Still, they are chasing down that Mars, and they've got GY down as Citrus. He is still going after Whitemon, but it is not working out. So instead, they'll try out to Cuckoo, but they'll lose the Aegis as Cuckoo somehow run out of there. He has actually made it, but not quite. There's your Sleight of Fist from Citrus. It gets the job done. It's T1. Who are we aiming? They'll get menu ping. Citrus, he'll be able to TP in time. And ultimately, you will still be able to find the tier 1 mid tower here for Team Orca. But it does cost you 2 bodies plus an Aegis. Very expensive tier 1 to take, but they do get it.
And they managed to at least open up the map a little bit more, but they're not able to immediately work that control. As well, they lose too many bodies to try to invade that jungle now. They don't manage to set up forward vision, so they're going to have to cross the river blind, while T1 will be ready for that move, and they managed to catch out Yif.
Yeah. No creep skipping for you, Mr. Yif. We'll go down to Whitemon once again on that Shadow Demon. It's very hard for Team Orca in these team fights. Like, you've got to find these supports first. Otherwise, you do risk just getting caught with a 5-second arrow, and it's just too painful to deal with in the middle of a team fight. You've seen GY, he constantly tries to find those big initiations onto Whitemon at the least. But it just has proven to be very difficult, and now T1 will go for a smoke up. Gabby's got that blink up, so he's got the initiation himself if he needs, and Citrus, he'd be a great target, but he's going to remnant out at the right time. Still, Gabby may have the opening if he wants to jump in past the tier 2 tower, but he will be a bit more conservative about it. Instead, it's into the Radiant Triangle, but they were scanned out. So Team Orca, they know exactly what's going on, and that's going to be enough for them. They'll back off to the base. They might even smoke up themselves very soon.
Yeah. They've got pretty much everything up. They've got fresh Scotty here on VT Faded, and it's back to that kiting potential. If they could get a good arena, manage to block off the big melee cores of the side of T1 while their BKBs are down, VT Faded has free reign in these fights. So again, it's all down to positioning here for Orca and Engage.
Oh, Carl just about to break the smoke, but misses out. Whitemon, he'll break the smoke onto Citrus. Where are we headed? Team Orca, they're going all the way north.
Clear as clean water.
It seems... Oh, the arrow. Now they definitely know. Menu ping cops an arrow from the side. I'm not sure who they were really chasing there. The Team Orca maybe just not finding who they wanted and just left it at that.
Yeah, it just boils down back to that mid-fight. They lost too many bodies. They couldn't plant the forward vision they needed to get a good invasion of that jungle. And when they go for the smoke play, it's without information. So it's very tough for Orca to get what they want. T1, with those trades earlier on, you managed to save themselves now. And they're still playing the bot jungle as well. No vision out here from Orca. They can't hold this area of the map, while also not being able to invade top. This will lead to Gabby's BKB, which will alleviate the issues with GY in the arena. He's not going to be kited around too bad. Deuce Scotty is still going to be painful, but the arena's not going to stop you from chasing heroes down anymore.
T1 grouped up across the map, but they might be forced to rotate to defend this top tier 2 tower. And they will. Yiv's still hanging around to go for the creep skip and apply more pressure, but he may get caught out here. Ms. Carl has showed up, and that'll mean Yif will just try to leave. Zephyr won't try for a blind arrow or anything like that. Though he may now that he knows Yif is still around, but... looks like they're just not going to waste their time with the Weaver. The TP aren't is there anyway from Yif, so he's going to be just fine as the pings do come out at the last second. Whitemon, he knew he was there somewhere, but it is a little bit too late.
That's what it's like to chase a cockroach, Mike. You know, they just zip around and they fly away, and you're just gonna have to live with that thought that it's elsewhere. Let's see if they can squish a bug down the line. Roshan is gonna be maybe up. We'll see a respawn in about half a minute, and they are set up for possibly a smoke play. Drums blink up on Cuckoo with the BKB on Gabby. So again, they are in a good position to show these new items off, catch someone off guard, get burst. No lucky DD for Gabby, unfortunately, as he does pick up a regen. And that should lead them to just play it safe. They were under vision as well. Great laning ward out from Orca. They're kind of positioned to be on the defensive. And this stall out does favor Orca in the end. You're playing with Adusa, you want to take your time. Even the Amber scales pretty nicely into the late game with the Ags build up here for Citrus. So you don't mind playing slower for Orca. I think it's on T1. They might want to be running a little bit faster. There's always the issue of Wraith King being kited up against Adusa, and that doesn't get easier into the late game. They will commit that smoke now.
And that they will.
Spotted by the ward, though. I believe the ward had vision on the edge.
No, I believe you are correct, John. They are very well aware this smoke has happened.
Dire are scanning.
Scan is actually going to catch up menu
Dire's
ping in the
top
triangle.
tower is under attack.
The dire triangle, that is. They are going to take the long way around T1, retracing the footsteps of Team Orca. Yif might just break the smoke as the dust is not going to connect. And now they know they are right behind them. That'll give plenty of information for Team Orca to just, again, split up and get the hell out of there. And this is really great for Team Orca, because this
Dire's
Medusa
top tower is under attack.
is becoming more problematic as time goes on. I mean, the Daedalus is going to be up rather soon for VT. I highly doubt Gabby's going to be able to contest this Medusa later on in this game. I mean, maybe he can. You can't really, you know, just kind of forget about Carl here on the Kunkka, but it is still a Medusa. Still Yif. Should be caught this time as the sentry has been dropped. Whitemon not going to play any games with this Weaver. Does secure the kill. But again, John, I think that main problem still stands. How are you going to deal with Medusa later on?
It's gonna be pretty tough. Like, again, up against Adusa, you will be kited around as a Wraith King. You will be kited around as a Kunkka, especially since the BKBs are starting to wear down. On Carl, it's already down to 6. However, they have that spike with the Kunkka with the Yags. No BKB on Adusa, so it is susceptible to that control. Citrus playing tag here. Not gonna stick around for too long. Moonlight was pop. And T1 might look to be aggressive with that use.
We'll try. You've got that Hawk Vision from Cuckoo, but right now he's got no information to give his team. So instead, they might just set up for the Roshan. We saw what happened last Roshan. Citrus, with that Sleight of Fist, he's doing a lot of damage right now, especially if you do clump up. T1, however, they take this Roshan very fast, so Orca, they don't have much time to get here, and it looks like they won't make it anyway. As the Medusa illusions do come in, but everything is picked up here for T1. Team Orca, they might still force the fighters. Oh, Arena Spear is out, but it wasn't an illusion. Now with the X out, they've got BT faded. Stonegaze gonna be popped, but Whitemon is there with the banish into the arrow, but no, it's not gonna land. And now Citrus, he'll jump in. Whitemon is probably gonna die first and will. They're onto the Medusa though, BT faded. He is not that tanky right now. They just completely surround him and take him out. You saw the coordination there from T1, John. I mean, they went for Whitemon on the Shadow Demon, and everyone from T1, they just swarm BT faded. They knew the Stonegaze was down, so we had no defense.
Yeah, and on top of that, you don't have any defensive items on VT Faded as well, which means this Ag's timing from Carl was really big, just punishing that lack of safety nets for the Dusa. Now GY might be in a bit of trouble here.
Yeah, GY gonna get a nice spear off, but the chase is still on, and he has no TP to play with any longer. Blink out, TPs are coming. They really want this kill, and eventually they will find it. Gabby, or rather Cuckoo, does take it for himself and the Beastmaster.
Radiant's middle tower is under attack.
And now T1 with a 6k net worth advantage. And I suppose they just answered my question that I was asking earlier as well, John. I mean, if you just swarm the Medusa, if Orca forget to protect BT Faded, and he doesn't have Stonegaze up, it seems like T1 do have the damage.
They've got the damage. More importantly, they've got the control. They can drag the fight out really long, pinning down BT Faded for a very long time with the Torn Storm, with the both. And without that BKB up on the Medusa, she's just a sitting duck. We are seeing BT Faded switch over to BKB now. That's still a long ways off, and the push is not that long from T1. Remember, Desolator was buffed up as well, Mike. You get additional damage. The base damage dropped by 5. You can get up to plus 25, so it's plus 20 damage buff towards the late game. Does scale nicely. Wow. Only 14 on Gabby now, but it's going to be more painful as the game goes on. And the Torrent Storm from Carl's already doing a lot of work, and he's going into the Hex next.
Dire's
So you can
bottom
just get the
tower is
instant
under
jump
attack.
onto, say, the Ember, or just the Dusa if you want to prioritize that. And you've got a heck lot of lockdown from T1, with Orca not having a lot of saves outside of Nightmare. So there's a lot of pressure on Minyo Ping. Again, finding a good position here on the Bane, getting the Nightmare saves, getting the grips he needs to set up for Orca to take these fights now.
I do love me a good Torrent Storm. I think this is one of the most undervalued ags, and I think it's been just that way for such a long time. The Torrent Storm is so ridiculous in a team fight, especially if you're able to just kind of wait out the BKBs. Once they are expended, you can't fight into it. I mean, Torrent Storm is just ridiculous. We just don't see it as often as I personally would like to, but very good to see Carl's picked it up.
Yeah, I think a lot of Kunkkas fall into the trap of wanting, more damage over control. And normally we see Ags as, what, a 5th item pickup after, say, a Daedalus or a Silver Edge in a lot of cases. But just having it early, knowing that BKBs aren't up yet, or if BKBs are shortening, you have a huge opening with that AoE control. It's almost like the same spike with a Storm Spirit with Ags, like AoE Vortex. Anything that gives you more team fight is just really, really strong at the right times. And T1 just managed to get the utility going from there. They aren't able to make too much progress on the map. Top tier 2 is the only one left here from Orca, and they are going to start shoving that in. Orca, for their part, have been doing a good job of clearing out a lot of creep waves with Citrus's mobility. He's got the axe. You can get the remnants off and just keep jumping across lanes. You don't quite have that mobility up on T1. You've got the XTP back, but you don't have travel on the Kunkka. So how often a hero can do that is not often enough. Still, not too much pressure from Orca, as the high ground will begin now from T1 with a massive creep wave. They will take it safe, not really force the issue, and maybe look for pickoffs instead.
Yeah, they're getting very annoyed here with Yif, as they will X him back into a torrent and a boat out. That'll be another kill to go the way of Carl. And while Yif does end up delaying the push at top lane, he is going to lose his life for the next 45 seconds. And now the line's been drawn out through the bot lane, so it looks like they might even switch up the lanes here for T1. But now they've gone for a big smoke up though as 3. Perhaps even maybe looking to force the fight in the Radiant Triangle now, as Cuckoo is hanging around and is throwing those Hawks out. That dive bomb, it can be so detrimental, as here it comes. They found Menu Ping. And I think it's onto the high ground now for T1. Not much in the way to be scared of or really stopping them. The Aegis is going to expire though, so we'll see if they're comfortable without it. GY, nice spear back, is going to find the Wraith King to start, so they might get the first life. Gabby, going to armlet toggle out of there and might just make it. In fact, he does. But it does seem like that's going to be enough to stop T1 from even trying to go high ground.
It's going to hold them off for a while here and just give a little bit more breathing room out for Orca. Their high ground defense is pretty darn strong. You've got to respect that. You've still got Arena Stone Gaze. The combination is just naturally very, very impactful. And of course, the Ags has been up on BT Faded for a while. So you have to time your BKBs well. You have to be able to turn it on only when you know you can kill the Dusa. And that's difficult. You have to worry about the Stone Gaze on top of the Snakes. You have to worry about the control out from the Ember, from the Mars. And that's just leading to that caution out from T1. Orca will smoke up. Again, they lack forward vision here, so it is without too much information. We'll see if they can find something good here.
Shell. Oh, they're gonna find Cuckoo. That's a big pick off. Cuckoo gonna die instantly. It's a great start here for Orca, but they know they've got to capitalize off this. They cannot afford to go back and farm right now. They need something. It's gonna be the mid-tier 2 tower. They try to aim down and maybe just force a 4v5 fight if they can. Cuckoo is gonna be down for 65 seconds without buyback. So plenty of time for Orca to have that advantage, but it does seem like they're actually going to back off here. So just not confident enough. Instead, they're going to try and head up top where Gabby was farming, but he's just going to rotate TP out back towards his team. And he has successfully just stopped the mid-tier 2 tower dropping.
Yeah. Steady defense out from T1. Not losing anything more than they should from that exchange. For Orca, not finding anything on the map is pretty painful. Maybe you can get some good forward wards. You have a good ramp ward now on the top jungle, but there's no Roche to play for, no outpost to take with all the tier 2 still standing from T1. So T1 are still in a really good spot. They've still got better Roche control with their outpost, still standing up top. The push of Orca is not that fast. Their wave clear is good, but their siege on towers isn't the quickest. I think that is what's holding back Orca right now. They do need a fight for committing onto an objective, and T1 now can start to look for a smoke play.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dire's structures are fortified.
And they go towards that top lane. I must say, I do appreciate the change that was made recently to the gem, and props to Ponlo, John. Ponlo was the one who tweeted that idea out before it was added to the recent patch, so you've got to give credit where credit's due. Ziev get the swarm off onto Gabby, but is immediately going to look to back off as GY is also around, but they certainly can't take a 5v2 right now, that's for sure. T1, they will find nothing. Back to my point though, the gem changes I really do appreciate. I feel like it makes the item much more valuable now, having that active available.
Yeah, no, it's not valuable, it's a nerf, because gem dropping was too strong. So they nerfed that aspect, because having open vision on, say, the high ground with a good gem drop, not just for dewarding, but for scouting out maybe a juke play on high ground, which is a high risk, but a high reward play. So I think it's overall a nerf, but a well-deserved nerf, as Ponlo was complaining about it being too strong, as we do finally find our first pause. Was wondering when this would come out.
GY. It's not happy about it. Dots up from GY. It looks like GY... Yeah, it's an awkward position. That's why he's putting the dots down, because he's farming the top lane right now. Under the creep vision. Wyman's going to rush over and does have the Blink Dagger as well as Aether Lens and Psychic Headbands. So the cast range is pretty huge, but he is not going to find out the Mars. Nice Blink TP away from GY, understanding how dangerous of a position he was in. Still 37.5 minutes in. 7k net worth advantage still standing for T1, but the top of the net worth board is still VT faded. And now he does have that Daedalus up. So suddenly damage is not so much an issue anymore for this Medusa. Should they force a fight here, John? Is this about around that time?
Yeah, I think this switch for the Daedalus for VT Faded is a massive risk. Like, maybe he doesn't feel safe with BKB because there is Roar. This leaves you with the same hole when Torrent Storm flies out, and we saw what T1 did with that spell use. So all about positioning for VT Faded as the Roche does begin here for T1.
That is fast. Citrus needs to get in there ASAP. He'll scout it out now. Remnant forward. No, it's not going to be there. Aegis is picked up by Gabby. GY, he started the fight though, and they may buy Carl with the disruption. Is going to buy a bit of time for the Kunkka to try and get that boat out in time. And he does, but they've already lost Kunkka. Carl is gone. Gabby, he's down his first life, but he does have that Aegis. Meanwhile, Citrus in the backside trying to pick off Zephyr. They will chase down that Wraith King. Meanwhile, Cuckoo does go down to VT faded. Team Orca just looking a lot stronger when it comes to the Roshan fights. Should be able to at least get this Aegis off Gabby and even find the secondary life. So he does have that refresher shard up, but he is not going to be able to use it. In fact, Citrus is not done yet. The Aghanim Scepter means he can pursue quite far, but it looks like Orca have decided to back off and go back after those tier 2 towers.
They need to be able to find a lot from that win. Really big win for Orca, and you still lose Aegis. You don't mind. You find the kills, and you put T1 in very awkward position. Now, this does go back to the point where Orca's push isn't the fastest. Piercing a tier 2 is taking time. Respawns aren't too long for T1, so I think there's reasonable enough time for them to get back in for at least the Rax defense. They might lose a tier 3 if they do commit on Orca, but the Rax are not going to be a free take here.
BT faded to move in off that tier 3 tower. You've got all the buybacks available for T1, but they just do not want to commit them like this. So it looks like they are going to sack at least one lane of barracks here in this mid lane. Wymon's going to do his best to try and delay this as much as humanly possible, but of course against the Ag's Ember, you've got to be very cautious yourself to not lose your own life. As that'll be the mid-racks gone, Team Orca. The patience finally paying off, as they'll be able to back and probably just start working on towards those other outer towers.
Yep. Need to get some progress in the other tier 2s. Lanes are a bit too shoved out here. I think that's all they're going to find for now, but they put themselves in a really good spot. We are seeing the issues of Wraith King up against Dusa with a Scotty. You can't gap close. BKB is now probably flying out for VT Faded, and there it is. Spell immunity up against the Ag Storm. Carl was forced to use the Torrent Storm really early there, he didn't manage to be in position to have it catch VT Faded. He didn't manage to really stop the Ember from zipping in and out, and I think that's where the big issue lies. T1 needs to be the ones aggressive rather than defensive, as their counterfight just doesn't feel as good. Even though they have some really strong control, you have to be able to catch one hero out to get a lot of that control going.
Jeez, I've got another complaint.
Really even game.
Got another
Yeah?
complaint. My open mic isn't on. So just for everyone out there watching, open mic is on right now. So I think it's the bug again, John.
Scanning.
Ah.
People trying to watch in
Beautiful
game,
bugs.
they can't hear me. Luckily for them, of course, but you know.
No. It's unlucky because they only hear me, Mike. What do you mean? It's even worse. It's terrible. I'm sorry for anyone watching in game. You've just
Yeah.
been listening to me
Well, could
have
you
a soliloquy
apologize
to myself.
Can you apologize
I
to them
have.
on my behalf?
Under attack.
All right, everyone watching in game, Mike does apologize. There is a bug with the open mic, as a smoke play will come out from T1 here, Mike.
Top tower
Yeah.
is under attack. Radiant's
GY.
bottom tower is under attack. Dire's top
Gonna
tower
break the
has
smoke.
fallen.
He's not gonna break it yet. It's T1. They're gonna wrap around the long way. Those Citrus almost breaks the smoke and does on Zephyr. Moonlight Shadow's there though. T1, who will they want to initiate on? It was Menu Pink, but they won't find him. Gabby, he's the one found out, and now BT Faded. He'll go right to work. Carl, he's been caught out. He is locked down by the Fiend's grip of Menu Ping. He needs help right now. As BT Faded's going right to work. This Kunkka completely out of mana, completely out of health, still alive, but not for long, as it looks like they'll be grouped up. The Carl gonna go for the BKB-TB play. He's gonna make it. Mid-team fight. He's gonna make it out. Gabby will do the exact same. They still found two for their trouble. And it seems like Orca, they are in a great position to try and go for another high ground push.
Top tower is under attack.
Yeah, it's just that point of game. Dusa is very hard to deal with, especially with a fresh BKB on VT Faded. Your high ground hold is somewhat there on T1, but you are reliant on getting a really good Torrent Storm in both. Let's see if they start finding the angles, but it's looking pretty rough for T1. The damage output of VT Faded and his durability makes it very hard to commit. And we saw some really good spacing from Menu Ping all the way at the back to get a good grip off in that fight.
Jump in, Whitemon. Found the Medusa. The arrow is going to land into the boat, but do they have enough damage? Great Nightmare dodge from Menu Ping, but the boat fleet's coming. Carl's got a whole army behind him as the Raw now being committed, but BT Faded still not dying. He's getting low, however. Maybe they finally got him, and they do. They just need the right-click damage of Gabby. They even found Menu Ping, but they won't have the stun. So they got the biggest kill they could have asked for, and they do defend the top
Dire's
racks.
middle tower is under
But they are
attack.
still 6k behind here, T1. And game one is not looking too flash hot for them.
No, it was a strong start from T1, but they never managed to commit onto the high ground. They've got a very tough core matchup for Gabby up against VT Faded. They find that opening as the BKB was still on cooldown when they managed to get that jump in, and I think that's their window. They have to be able to chain stun Dedusa before she can get that BKB off, hold her back with a torrent, hold her back with the, the boat fleet coming out from Carl, and just run from there. If you can kill off Dedusa, that's a lot of the damage gone. Citrus can do a lot, but you're mainly riding off the coattails of Dedusa at this point.
Gabby's got a double damage though. Maybe you can force something. At least the buyback from BT Faded might just be worth it for T1. DY, jump in, but a quick sight device out from Carl. Still GY. He'll get the BKB off in time. That'll be about it seems. It's T1. I don't think they'll go much further, knowing BT Faded's up in 20. Unfortunately for T1 though, they don't get quite what they wanted. No buyback from the Medusa, no T3 tower either.
Yeah, they're just held back. Even though you don't have the damage on Orca to kill off the heroes, you have a lot of great wave clear coming out from Citrus, and that's enough to stall out the push.
Dire
Side of
are scanning.
T1 also don't have a rush to immediately jump into, and even then, you mentioned it, Mike, Orca has been having a great time forcing these fights in Roshan. Their positioning is just so good. They managed to force T1 to clump up. I think for T1's part, when they take Rosh, they've got to be able to keep their supports outside. Maybe even Cuckoo outside, because he's having to join in, provide some DPS inside. I think you need to have Cuckoo ready with a counter initiation of that roar to at least pin down one of the heroes on the side of Orc and prevent them from getting the full chain of events they want in these fights to break out. We do see Cuckoo opt for the Boots of Bearing, which is a great way to still get charges on the drum, so there's a lot of good auras coming out from him. probably one of the best items coming in this patch. And that does free up another item slot for him. He's not been getting the most farm now in the Beastmaster, severely behind even GY. See what he will opt for as Orca are grouping up now with VT Faded back up. They've got the Satanic up on their Dusa, way more durability. If they don't manage to pin down VT Faded before BKB flies out, I don't know if you're going to have enough in any sustained fight. It's just difficult to see VT Faded dying in that Dusa anymore.
Well, there's that 5-man smoke, John. They're going to try. Dusa Illusion Runes and Wraith King Illusion Runes going at it in the mid lane. Menu Ping doesn't want to be caught first, but he will be happy to break the smoke as GY has jumped in, but Carl, he found the... No, he hasn't. The Bane, the Nightmare dodge on the X-Pac, but no, they found BT Faded. They've got the Dusa. The time lapse was there from Yip to save the day. As now T1, they might be sitting ducks. They're all in the arena. White one's going to drop. BT can get right to work. They do at least kill off GY, but Gabby's going to keep going as Nightmare again there on BT Faded, going to juke out the Roar. But they've got the chains out. Gabby in trouble. He does get petrified there. He's got 2 lives, but he's going to lose one straight off the bat. And another one to come as they've locked him down. They will clean up T1. The defensive capabilities there from Orca, John, it's just too much. I mean, you've got the Nightmare and the time lapse. The Aghanim Scepter time lapse, that is, from Yif, and they just can't hold on to VT Faded.
Just way too much to keep that Dusa up and running, and that was a very fragmented start from T1 as well. Again, their one best angle is to jump VT Faded first. He's just very well protected in the backline. Now the threats of the tier 4 is to fall. Gabby does have buyback if he wants to join in this fight. Gonna hold on for a bit, but the damage out from VT Faded will make short work of those objectives.
Gabby's gonna buy back here, I think. You've really got no option. The tier 4 tower's going down, and now he'll commit it. They've got to try it. One more time here as Carl going to move in with that Scythe Device and the Roar out onto the Dusa, but the Nightmare again out. Still the boat fleet will come in, but BT Faded, he could not give a crap. He'll stand his ground onto the tier 4 towers. It's gone. While Citrus, he'll move in. He'll go for the man fight. Though Gabby has jumped on the Dusa, but BT Faded again just could not care less. Gabby is just getting destroyed here by BT, and they are just focusing down the Ancient. As a nice turret does land from Carl, they are going to continue trying with the buybacks out. Carl, he'll be back into this one. BT, though, still proving to be a bit too much. Roar is out. They locked them down for a little bit, but it just doesn't matter. BT, he's finally running low on mana, but they are out of HP on the side of T1 as they're going to get the dieback on Gabby. Tips are out for Citrus as well, and that'll be it. GG for game 1, I think. As it's a 2v4 scenario, they are still not calling a T1. They're going to try to keep defending this Ancient. But how do you do it? Carl, he'll get the boat fleet out again. Citrus is still just going to work here on the Ember though. They're trying to focus on this Medusa. The Torrent Storm is there. Roar is out onto Menu Ping, but the time lapse is going to save his own life. As they've got the Carl Kunkka locked down, and that's the GG call. That'll be enough as they completely wipe them out. Team Orca just dragging the game out long enough, John, that this draft was just not going to be beat.
They do a great job of stalling the game. T1 had a fantastic start. They were finding the objectives. Roche fights weren't going their way, but they were winning out every other fight besides that. They couldn't make progress onto the high ground. And props to Orca for holding out, like mainly on Citrus and Yif. We were seeing them work the side lanes well, keeping the creep wave back, preventing T1 from having too much to play with, as once their creep wave reached high ground without any other creep wave, it would just easily be cleared out by Orca with all the wave clear they had. So good holdout from Orca. This is the Orca that we expect to see. And again, Mike, this is a very interesting matchup because Orca was in the running to go to Div 1. They were held back. They're still in Div 2. T1, it's a regional finalist.
Yeah.
So this is a strong showing out from Orca and just shows you how scary some of those Div 2 teams are, Mike.
Oh, absolutely. And with that, John, we are going to head to a short 10-minute break. And for the people out there that do want the in-game audio on, I'm going to try and fix the bug if it's fixable. We'll find out very soon. But we're going to head off to a 10-minute break, and right after that break, we'll be back with Game 2 between Team Orca and T1.